The EU4Women Hike is a powerful fundraising initiative brought by the European Union Delegation to South Africa. The event goes beyond just celebrating Women's Month. It's a vibrant display of unity and solidarity for women and girls. Leading this effort is the EU Ambassador to South Africa, Sandra Kramer. Earlier, she spoke to my colleague Hugo Ribatika discussing the significance of EU4Women Hike and other important endeavors on the African continent.
Thank you so much for speaking to us and obviously allowing us to be a part of this EU4Women Hike. Talk to us about that. How successful has it been?
Well, thank you for participating, first of all. It's really nice of you and your crew to be here today. We have enjoyed it very much. We work with the Tswana Leadership Foundation, and this is, of course, Women's Month, and we want to raise awareness for gender-based violence. We do a lot to support them, but this is a little thing. It's not huge, but it's something practical. It brings us together, and it raises awareness to something which is a serious problem and that we are really concerned about. So I'm very happy that you could see today that it was a nice event on a beautiful day.
You speak about the gravity of gender-based violence in this country, and over a number of stats releases by the police minister, Vicky Clearly, those numbers are hovering around 12,000 almost every quarter. Does this worry you?
Yes, of course, this should worry everyone. I think the President of South Africa said this is the second pandemic after COVID. It's something that should really be a concern of all of us. Women, children, men should all be concerned about gender-based violence. And that's why we have organized this today. And that's why we are happy and really proud that so many people showed up today here to join us in this march.
Now, I want to shift away from certainly the war, which we've just had, and talk about the BRICS Summit, which has just happened in South Africa. Significant event indeed. In fact, one of the things that came out is that there will be another 6 nations that will be joining the BRICS from the 1st of January 2024. What is your reaction to this development?
Well, I think, first of all, that South Africa showed that it could organize this very well. So it seems to me a very well organized and very important event. And I think that we are watching this, of course, with great interest. And I think it's very important that we all look very carefully at what is happening and what is discussed. I was also very pleased to see the Secretary General of the United Nations participating. So all in all, a very good show, I think, for South Africa and for South Africa's President.
Your Excellency, I'd like to talk a little bit about the European Union and Europe in general and its relation with the Francophone countries. You know, we've seen a number of coups. We've seen a coup recently in Niger. There's been instability in Mali. There's almost a push for countries such as France to leave some of these territories. What is the EU's position on the reaction of Africa to these Francophone relations of old?
Well, I think we look at the situation there with great worry, of course, but I think in all, the European Union has made it very clear that relations with Africa are a top priority for us. This is clear by the President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, has made that very clear, and also the President of the Council, Charles Michel, has made it extremely clear that relations between the European Union and the Africa Union are extremely important. We are present in almost all African countries as European Union. We have delegations, that is embassies, everywhere. And we are in partnership with African countries on the challenges that we all face, such as climate change or rapid digitalization or economic growth, job creation, education. These are the things that we feel are important. And mostly through our Global Gateway platform, we are supporting our African partners in fighting all these global challenges together.
So when we talk about the situation of security in Africa, particularly in some West African countries where the European Union is present, as you've stated, and in many instances has a peace force in those regions, but instability still occurs. Do you feel that the European Union could do more? Is the onus on the locals themselves to come up with peace initiatives, do you think?
Ultimately, I have always thought that African solutions for African problems is always a good thing to do, but the European Union has 11 peace missions right now in Africa. We also support peace missions in Mozambique. We support the SADC peace missions. We have been very supportive through our European Peace Facility, which is a facility that finances a lot of that. And of course, also through the Africa Union. There's a lot, for example, peace mission in Somalia, that is funded by the European Union almost entirely. So it is extremely important to see all that, but this can only be part of the solution, of course.
Now I want to touch a little bit on Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe's just had its elections. I know that there's an EU observer mission that is in Zimbabwe. But talk to us about your expectations as the EU. I know that there is somebody who's specifically tasked with that mandate in Zimbabwe, but generally as the EU, what are your expectations of any election on the continent or elsewhere?
Sure. On Zimbabwe, of course, anywhere, elections should be free and fair. That's clear. We have an electoral observer mission there, and they made a statement yesterday. It was made public, and of course I have a colleague there, a European Union ambassador, who is probably better placed to comment on the Zimbabwe elections. But the electoral observers made a statement, and I can share it with you if you want to read it.
Now, I'd like to touch on something that I hadn't talked to you about previously, but obviously feel free to answer if you will. The issues around migration. You know, there's a lot of migration that's happening from North America in particular, across the Mediterranean, trying to get to various European countries. In your view, how can this be best dealt with?
You said North America, you mean North Africa?
North Africa,
yes.
North Africa,
yes. First of all, I think we have always seen that most of the migration takes place within Africa. There are huge parts of populations on either internally displaced or crossing borders, and we must always look at that and see that there is a tremendous migrational movement within Africa. And we have very specific support to the countries of origin, to the countries of transit, and also we look very much at the root causes of what makes these people want to take such a very dangerous journey. So it's an extremely complex issue. It's an extremely difficult situation, but I think that we are looking at it from very many ways and very holistically, and again always hand in hand with the partners that we work with and the countries that these people stem from.
Now, as we wrap, I'd like to come back to the issues of gender-based violence. And obviously women, by and large, suffer the most hurt when it comes to gender-based violence. How does the EU aim to address these concerns, not just on the continent, but certainly elsewhere? I mean, what are some of the lessons that you've picked up in other countries across the world, or some of your member states that can be used to solve or deal with the problems, particularly in a country like South Africa, where those numbers keep rising and at the very least maintain, but we don't often see them coming down?
Yes. This is true, and I think it's a very important point to have the lessons learned also from other countries and other experiences, which is what we're trying to do. We also, of course, not just focus on the women, we always also involve men and boys into this conversation, which is very important. We have in South Africa support to the Ministry of Women, Youth and People with Disabilities. That is budget support, which goes through National Treasury, but it's really for the ministry to roll out very important programs that they have for women. And we also fund a large number of civil society organizations that help women and that really try to get those numbers down. As you say, they're persistently high, and that is what we have been trying to do today, to raise awareness of that, because that cannot go on like that.
I've always insisted that the conversations could be better on two fronts. The first is that many of the conversations are with women who aren't actually the perpetrators. They're the victims of gender-based violence. That's number one. The second issue is a lot of the support goes to arresting individuals that have already perpetrated the crime and not so much prevention. What is your comment to those two issues?
Spot on. Both spot on. And if I may add a third one, victims of these situations is also children. We should not forget that women sometimes leave their home, bring their children, and the children have nothing. And we really need to make sure that we look after them, that they get to school, that they get their lives back on track. So I think you're spot on with that. This is a problem which is way more complex than it seems. It's not about arresting and perpetrating, and this is a complex issue. And that's what today, and the whole of Women's Month makes it so important to constantly raise awareness and look at it from all angles.